Um, think about what we've seen lately, it's been unusual.
Elliot, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you there now.
All right, you're the only person right now. We'll wait just a couple more minutes to see if anybody shows up.
Sounds good.
Anything in particular that you would like to discuss or have questions about?
No, not really. I was just sitting here at my office and got the text that this class was starting, and I've got some construction knowledge, and so figured
Okay.
it could be kind of interesting hearing more. I used to work in commercial construction management, so
Okay,
not as much on the residential side. So
right.
yeah, interesting to kind of learn your insights on that side of things.
Have you sold any houses yet?
Not with Keller Williams yet. Nope.
Okay, and do you currently have anything under contract that you have questions on?
I do not know. I'm kind of
Okay.
just getting started. I was working with investors before coming to Keller Williams. I'm just kind of getting started working on the just normal residential side. So
Oh, okay. I'm gonna try to get rid of this. Yo.
Absolutely.
Are you gonna be part of the class?
Yes, but I want to sit back behind you. I'll sit right here. I want to see your spotlight.
Did you bring us one?
It's actually really cool house though.
Well, there's a microwave. Come on. All right, now how about you? Can you see Alexia okay there, Elliot?
Yeah.
Alexia's you've been here now, what, 2 years?
Mhm.
There you go. You have anything under contract or
No.
looking at that you want questions on, that you've seen? Because we have Tom here from Housemaster
We work together.
Yeah, Tom.
that you know. Yeah, he's your guy.
Sorry, I think I sat in the worst spot possible. Move over here and bring my big
Yeah,
over here.
oh, that a girl.
I mean, my brother's looking at some properties in the Red Feather Lakes, which is quite a drive.
I just sold one up there.
You did?
Yeah.
No way.
Yes.
I see that.
So let's talk about that in case, because the house I sold had a cistern. It did not have a well. Do you know what a cistern is? Okay, you take your little trailer with the tank, you drive down to the lake, fill it up with water and bring it back. So that's one thing you need to look at if you're showing it there.
Let me get my little notebook out.
Do you have,
And then if it has a well.
yep,
Yeah.
but have it a well. My radon was 145, but they were able to get rid of it with one system. Now, what it was, and you're gonna see this up there according to where you're at in Red Feather Lakes. They have areas where there's quite a few mobile homes that are on a foundation.
Okay.
The house that I sold was on a foundation up quite a ways up there, and to look at it, you would never go, well, that's a mobile home. So that's another thing you need to be aware of. Look at the type of property it is, see if it is a mobile home on a foundation, and make sure that it's purged with the land. Do you know what purged means? It's connected. Otherwise, it's just a can. And you're just buying a trailer, which is not worth much.
Buy a trailer.
Hi, Elena.
I want to get rid of him out of the house, but.
Hello.
I'm gonna go stay with my.
Hi, Lisa. Hello. Hello, Lisa. Lisa's not there.
Hello, I'm here.
Hola. So it looks like Alexia is working up in Red Feather Lakes possibly, which Lisa helped me sell a place up there earlier this year. And she just wanted to maybe talk about it. Are either you, Elliot, or Elena, are you familiar with a cistern? The term cistern and what it is? Nope.
Not greatly.
Yep.
big bucket of water, big pot of water underneath.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically go get your water from another source. And so the house had a tank attached to a pickup truck. You would drive the pickup truck down to the local lake, which was a very pure water supposedly. And you fill it up and you take it back up to the house and you use it to, for your water system. Do you have that address? On your property up there
Oh,
that you
sorry,
looked at
I was
or
waiting for you to
anything?
tell me earlier. It's 112 West Balsam. Lane?
Balsam?
Yes.
And this is Red Feather.
Yes.
112. Lebanon. It's Balsam Lane,
It's really crappy,
okay,
but
Hiawatha Heights. I think we looked at one in there. In fact, I think that was on the market when I sold the house.
this one,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's been on there for a while.
100
It's really crappy, but he wants to like,
Yeah, you can tell
He
right
wants
off the
more
bat that
yeah,
hopefully you don't have an FHA or a VA buyer.
he's doing convention.
That's good because the paint is really bad on that house.
The cabin in that low corner, goodness gracious, I thought we were gonna get murdered. And then someone in the back put like a figurine of like a Sasquatch and it looked like it was a person watching us from a tree and I was like, he's moving, I know he's moving.
Well, this is interesting.
Yeah,
It looks to me like it's a trailer.
yeah, it's one you mentioned, yeah, this,
Let me look at something here.
the beams look a lot nicer in that picture than in person.
They do.
Yeah. That's saying a lot.
Okay, so it says right here, mobile home and land are not purged. So you would just be selling that as a mobile home, no land. Yeah. And so that is a ridiculous amount of money that they're asking for. Okay,
Okay.
so you got to make sure you read these, either the private remarks, or it'd be nice if they would have put it in public remarks and told you that. Now let's look at the source of water. Dirt, driveway, that. There is no water. No, just kidding.
Said well for water source.
Well as a water source. So you do have water.
Yeah, there's
And a
water
well.
in there.
So you're gonna want to look for any properties up there that are, do have a well, or a cistern can work. But like my people, the house they purchased up there, let's see, Lake Erie. They were up above the main reservoir up there. And so, they can just drive down about a mile to the lake, fill up and go.
It's not showing on the map.
There's what?
It's not showing on the map.
The maps don't show.
Oh.
I don't know why maps don't show.
So can I just mention, if you're buying a home that's on a well, you generally want to get a well yield test. And those can be pretty expensive, and I would say most home inspectors don't do them.
No, you usually have to get a local person that does well and septic testing. So the well, it'll vary for the cost. Normally you can get a potability test, and you can get a recovery test. And they'll check the pump and everything. Johnny, do you remember what he just paid out in Albert? It was,
600 and something.
I think it was.
I was gonna guess about 700.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's 600 to 100 to maybe 1,000 on a high end. And if a house has a well and it has a very slow recovery rate, then what oftentimes, well, then what you pretty much have to do is have tanks in the house that are storage tanks so that you can have extra water, because a slow well will maybe only recover a couple of gallons a minute. Well, you can use a couple of gallons a minute in a shower. So if you do have a well and you go into a house and you see these huge 500-ish gallon tanks, that's because they have a slow recovery rate, which you find quite a bit. Yeah. A good recovery rate, I sold a house one time that had like 12 or 13 gallons a minute, and Yeah, they had all the water they needed. They could have taken a shower, ran the dishwasher, washed the car in the driveway, and they'd have probably been okay. But you do have to be careful about it. Then septic, if you do sell a property with septic, you want to get a sewer line scope even on that. Okay? And why is that? Same thing, they can be broken between the house and the septic. That line can break. Oftentimes, because you typically are in areas, especially as you get into the mountains, where you have much more dramatic weather changes. And the ground's different and so on. Tom, you had something?
I was just gonna say, the seller has to provide the
Septic certification. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Not all counties require the seller, most of them do. I think Weld does not, if I remember right. They don't require one, which is kind of crazy. But if you do write an offer on a property that has well and septic, please reach out to myself or our owner Kevin or somebody of Margaret in productivity coaching, because you want to make sure that you're covered on your inspections. A lot of people just think that, well, I don't need an inspection. Yeah, get an inspection anytime you have a well or a septic, please. And make sure you ask for that certification. And we have some very good verbiage on the septic certification. Okay, so I remembered that house, and yeah, 195 days. Yeah, so let me, since we're up in, I don't know if everybody knows where Red Feather Lakes is, but this is northwest of Fort Collins a little ways. And it is a beautiful area up there.
Well, he really wanted it because of the lot, but now that you tell me that, that's not gonna work out.
Yeah, it's not gonna work out. You don't own any land, and
The
there,
view there is beautiful.
I don't know, yeah, I don't know why they're thinking that they can get that much money for a trailer on that's not perched. Yeah, you don't own anything there except a trailer and a log house. Is that log house on it? It is. And what does it do?
The log house?
Okay, so here's the house I sold.
Oh, it's
So that is actually a trailer. Okay, and it's a trailer on a foundation. So this area down here was unfinished. But if you look when you're looking at the house, you're thinking, wow, it's got just a normal house. Frame looking to it. But essentially the trailer is that point up. And the other thing that was good, that a lot of times when you're in a mobile home, you see these fake walls. They're made out of plastic or some kind of press board. They had actually textured everything. This looked like a house. Now this was, you find a lot of summer houses up there. So these people only went up there in the summer to play at the lake and have fun up there. And it's common up there. They sell these with furniture included, which is kind of nice, but not everybody needs that. This one, I don't think you guys were on the call when I said this, but this had the highest radon test I've ever seen at 145. But it only took one system to repair that and get it mitigated. But see, that was their view. Pretty amazing, and there's a lot of houses up there. This is the main reservoir. So they had to drive down the hill, and they have to, and they're just, right now it's a temporary. And typically, do you go into the mountains much or foothills? Yeah, do you typically find radon higher?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things when you're in the mountains. So the wind will affect radon more on a house on a hill than it will in the city.
In the city.
So just the pressure of the wind blowing against the hillside will push the radon
Push it up.
gas up,
Interesting.
up and out. So we have to really be careful when we test there. And I always recommend that people give us extra time if we can, because if we have a particularly windy couple of days,
Mhm.
you can see like 100 picocurie difference. The other thing is if it's an area that was mined, there was mining in that area, those tunnels
Yeah.
that were man-built are now passageways for your radon to pass through the mountain and makes any, I guess, penetration of the gases much easier to get to a higher level under the house.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So the highest one I've ever seen was 156, and it
Okay.
was on a hillside under a mine, and the mine was the big. But we always want to make sure we tell people also, like, if you're buying in that area, you definitely want to do a test when you buy or sell, but you want to monitor it, because come the winter, when you're, particularly if you have a fuel fire furnace, the radon level is going to go up because the furnace is going to pull
Yeah.
more radon in. And so you may have 150 in the summertime, but then maybe 200 in the winter. So definitely recommend to people to get a monitoring unit.
Yeah,
if they're in a
absolutely.
high radon situation like that, because it can vary a lot,
Okay,
and a lot more than it would here in a relatively flat
Yeah.
area.
Makes sense.
yeah, so that even means probably like they had a mitigation system put in on that house that I sold. It could change and go way over, and especially because it's on a hill. And it faces to the south, so the prevailing wind probably wouldn't be blowing into them, but it could still blow.
Yeah. And there are some relatively good monitoring systems that people can buy that, you know, you just set it and say, hey, only alarm me when this hits a 6 or an 8. Even in that 4 picocuries is the trigger level for the EPA. And that way people can help their systems. Once the system's installed, it's pretty easy to manipulate the system to help get any additional radon out, but you just want to be aware of how
Right.
much radon is building up in your house.
So I know that you're aware of what it is, Elena and Lisa. Elliot, I'm sure you know what radon is as well.
Correct.
Okay. And guys, it normally runs somewhere around $100 to $150 to get a radon test done. And it's something you should always tell your buyers that they ought to do. I will oftentimes either pay for that test to be performed for my buyers, or I'll pay for a sewer scope. Because a lot of times people are like, well, we're not really worried about it. Let's worry about it. Let's make sure your house is safe. And it's the #1 contributing factor to cancer other than smoking. So it's definitely something serious that we need to consider and protect our clients if we can. Or when you're going to a listing appointment, what is your seller going to say if you ask them, do you have a mitigation system? No. Would you consider, what would you do if the buyer has a test, which probably I'd say what, 98% of the people get a test, or 100%, or
I would say it's probably closer to 70%.
really only 70? That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So 70% people getting a test, they get a test on your seller's house and it comes back very high. And your seller says, well, that's fine, they can do it, which they can. The seller can say, I don't want to fix it. The buyer can do it themselves. Or I'll give them a concession to get it repaired. Or if they don't want the house, I'll find another buyer, which in the market we had a year and a half ago was that way. People could get an inspection and ask for, you know, a washer to be changed in the faucet, and the seller would say, no, I'll put it back on the market. Now, I think you'll find that most everybody would probably do that because they're sitting on the market for much longer than they were. But it's all in how you approach it. So when you go on a listing appointment, make sure you check and see, does the house have a radon mitigation system. And how willing is your seller to help work with something should they find an issue during the inspection? Because I know that I think every listing I've had this year, they've had a radon test. Even the one you did for me on Deep Haven out from there, and that had a higher reading. And so we had to get one. And radon mitigation is gone up in price some. It used to be you could find it for 800, 900, under 1,000 often. Now it's up 11, 12, 13, 1,400. If you have a crawl space, it tends to be more because they have to put plastic on the entire dirt, the ground down there, make sure it's sealed and make sure that everything's done correctly. So it is more expensive than it's like a full basement. Because in a full basement, they can just drill a hole down through the floor if there's no sump pit and bring a pipe up through there and go out. But the crawl space is more expensive. Yep. So any questions anybody has on radon? Nope.
I'm gonna go see something.
What?
You just sent me literally just now sent me another house that he wants to look at.
Up in Red Feather?
This one is in Brook.
Correct?
Mhm.
I don't know where that is. Do you know where it is?
No. California.
Well, let's
Figure it out.
let's look this up while we're here. This is good. What's the address number?
It's 28605.
It's a long ways from here. 28065?
28605.
605.
County Road 71.
2860.
28605.
Oh, boy. That's it.
There it is.
Okay, so you ready?
Yes.
There's no neighbors.
There's nobody there. It looks like the house from.
You ready? We're gonna go out a little further. Oh, there's the highway.
Oh, I guess I was waiting for it to come up on
We can see them.
the screen.
Ready? I don't know that you want to go there.
I don't want to go anywhere. We can send him here for his
Okay, so-
brother.
Here's Longmont and Fort Morgan and Brush and Sterling, and there's Crook.
God, brother.
So you are, I'm sorry, you guys can't see the map. I know that, but I'm just helping her out a little bit here. So you're a good, probably,
4 hours?
no,
3?
two
Oh, okay.
one way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where's Feather was in 2 hours?
here's North Platte, Nebraska. You're halfway in between there. So,
Essentially what he wants to do is he wants a huge garage. Huge.
Oh,
Okay.
it's a huge garage with a
Yes,
little
so
tiny
that's
house.
why he sent me. He
there's,
doesn't care about the size of his living space. He wants a huge garage.
he wants a huge garage. Well,
It's a
I'd
huge
say
lot.
he probably has a huge garage. Doesn't look like it has. Let's see what it's like inside.
There's not much inside. I already kind of.
Wow. They took a lot of pictures
40
from,
acres.
there you go. They got a tank.
Huge garage. Perfect.
Wow. There's nothing there.
No.
So it's a garage and land.
Yes.
So only
Look at
qualified
that.
buyers, please. 48 business hour acceptance. Okay, whatever. Great possibilities and great opportunity to finish off what's been started. That's what you always wonder about. No further construction or improvements will be completed by the seller, buyer to complete construction, buyer to install propane tank for heat, etc. None on the property, electric to the property pole. So there is no electric on the lot itself. It's only to the pole out on the road.
You gotta bring it in.
You gotta bring it in. So that's quite an expense. So
Yes.
I don't know where, let's look at this. Sorry about it, guys. I don't know why it doesn't show map, but the land, I'm assuming this is it here. Yeah. So it doesn't even show
Or the,
where the garage is.
always way.
I don't see it, so. Number one thing you might wanna do is talk to the lender. Because for the price, what is the price on this? 295,000 for 40 acres. But you have a 4,400 square foot garage. I don't know, the lender's gonna want, they may want more money down than
Or,
what does he want to put down?
thinking,
20K? They may say, we want 20%. I don't know, because of it being kind of a risk, there's no real collateral there other than a
Yeah.
unfinished garage.
yeah,
There's no water to it. There's no electric to it. So talk to the lender,
okay,
okay?
thank you.
And don't just drive out there to show them before you do that.
Oh, God.
No,
Now, looking at that map, I'm gonna pass.
right.
At least Red Feather is pretty, you know, like.
Yeah,
the
Red
drive up
Feather's-
there is so nice.
Well, and you should be able to show a few properties in Red Feather. If he wants an actual house. Versus a trailer.
Yeah. He just wants to be able to build, like, the only reason he's moving out to the mountains is to build a huge garage.
Okay,
He's a,
so let's go up to Evergreen and just look, since we're kind of in the mountains.
yeah, I'm not allowed to park in a garage.
Aha.
Cause he has,
Let's see if we can find a few houses that are of interest. So when you start getting into areas up in the foothills and you have houses that are built on the side of a hill. And Elliot, you know enough about construction. Not all of us do, but one of the worst things you can find when you get up there and you have a hill like this. What is going to run from the ground towards the house here? Water, snow. When the snow melts, you have that potential of having an issue in here, and they've got a deck that's going to collect that, probably drain down below, sit against the foundation. God only knows what you're gonna have under there, and they may not care. But you want to care when you're showing that house. And they may have a system that diverts the water away from it. I showed a house one time up in, actually in Conifer, where the water just came down the mountain and ran into the foundation, and just, when you got down there, it was soaked down there. There was no finished basement. It was just a bunch of what we call efflorescence, which is when you're in a basement, if you see a white powdery substance on the walls, that's called efflorescence, and that is basically caused from water breaking down the minerals in the concrete. And when they dry, they get very light and powdery. And so sometimes when you're in a basement, you'll see that very prominently, and you know that there has been moisture problems. But that's one of the main things I always look at is drainage, because as my structural engineer always tells me, that they build houses out in the middle of the rain and snow. They don't have any protection. So the only protection they have is what you provide to it as far as drainage away from the house. You can see that this has probably a fairly steep hill coming down, and they have these concrete, let's see, these pavers. Very likely there's water penetrating down there into the foundation. And when you're in the foothills, what do? You have freezing temperatures, and you have 50-degree day, then freezing temperatures, and all that does is wears on the house. And another thing you find a lot up in the foothills, a lot of them do not have downspouts or gutters even sometimes. Sometimes they just have the roofing comes to the end, and snow and the rain just drips off the edge, right? See that a lot because of ice buildup, but
And deck structures are always a concern.
always a concern. Roberto in our office had a house listed up there that they had built a deck on top of the garage. So the decking, they didn't put any kind of roofing underneath the deck. When you went into the garage ceiling was stained. And it was in bad shape, very bad shape. The house didn't sell. So you really want to look at construction when you get up into the foothills. Because there are you'll see a lot of weird things happen when they build up there. And some people just throw stuff together. See, in this price range, you'd hope that wouldn't be the case, but it is. Let's see if we can get, well, there's a pretty, maybe he'd like to see this one. Uh-huh.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Wow.
So there's
There's
nothing inside. You don't have to worry. It's just a framed A-frame.
I was gonna say, it looks like there's another building.
Something.
At
That's a mother-in-law apartment.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there it is.
where your sister stays.
Right, that's where he's gonna come again when I
Okay.
go visit.
So,
Not that
you know,
big.
try to be aware if you have somebody who's just looking for anything, and look at the price of this. I mean, 600,000 almost for a uninhabitable house on 5.76 acres. So it's worth the land only, and that's more than the land is worth. That's kind of crazy. But it's only been on the market 2 months, so let's see what happens. Again, here's another house built. You can see that the drainage is towards the house. It looks like they may have some pretty good area around it to help get the water away from the house, but let's take a look. Okay, this is something you see quite a bit too, is you'll see garages that are separate from the house quite a ways. Sometimes they can be 50 yards or whatever away, but that's not something everybody wants. But if somebody's just trying to get into a house, they will. But look at the amount of drainage going into this garage. So it could be a definite problem. Right? Got a newer panel. I don't know what that is. Can't really tell.
It looks like it's a shut off.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? A shut off there.
Yeah,
Roofing is definitely older.
it's kind of weird.
So that was the house. That would be a good deal for 575. Yeah, deck structures, like Tom said, when you get up into the foothills, oftentimes they are not made very well. And you need to be very aware of that when you're looking, just to give your buyers the opportunity to know that, you know, there could be problems when you have an inspection. The inspector is going to look at it seriously and point out any deficiencies. But a lot of times people make their own decks and they don't pull a permit and they don't know what they're doing. Do they?
Yeah, that is correct. That like a lot of people, like just the basic. What I want to say, understructure, like people put a lot of weight on screws and bolts and nails, and it just is not appropriate for the amount of weight. Like that deck, how many people think you put on that deck?
I wouldn't want, this only has 4x4s.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have a party and put 15 people on that thing. You start
Easily.
adding the amount of weight that could easily end up on that deck. And to think that those little 4x, they just look spaced very wide to me.
It does.
Yeah.
Without making any calculations or.
Right.
Or, and then the cantilever, like you'd want to really make sure that. Because I would say that there's an original deck and then an addition that was
And
put
in
on.
addition,
And I can't really see what's going on there. Look, that tree goes through the deck.
yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
it's
is probably really cool.
Yeah, it go right through it.
I would spend some extra time making sure I really understood what was going on with this deck, because it could potentially be dangerous.
Yeah. And what other contributing factor do you have for weight when you get up in the foothills? You have snow. And snow loads, I mean, if that deck was loaded with 1.5 feet of snow, imagine how much weight that is. And, you know, you don't want that call after your people have moved in and going, oh my God, our deck just collapsed. So make sure, again, and this is not just because Tom is sitting here, get the houses inspected. No matter what, if your buyer says, well, I really don't need it. I've been in construction, I understand, great, but let's just for $500 on a $800,000 house, why not spend that money to make sure that the house is in good shape? Right? Any questions, guys, so far? Let's go to a couple others. See what we find. That might be pretty good.
That's another one that's got a tree going through the deck, huh?
Yeah, that's popular.
Yeah.
And then you build a bench around the trunk and you have a place to sit. Yep, it's but look at how steep that land is going down to that house. And it's very common because you're building in the mountains, you don't have a whole lot of flat areas typically, right? And another thing I want you guys to be aware of, if you're showing anywhere, but especially in the mountains, of course, they are going to have oftentimes wood stacked up, okay? You really don't want wood stacked up near the home. You want to get it away from the house. So if you go to show a house even like this, there's a very high potential that there are termites in there. Now, I don't know if termites they're not around much in this wintertime, right?
Yeah, and I mean, in general, we don't see them a lot until somebody imports them in something like firewood.
Exactly. Yep. And
But just as important, any animal is gonna find shelter in that wood, so when it's close to the house, we find. So I had this situation this summer where this is an evergreen. The wood was stacked near the house, we did the inspection. So the buyers bought the house, they moved the stack away, and there's a hole the size of my fist through the house where some animal had burrowed in and into the garage and into a cabinet in the garage, which was inaccessible at the time of the inspection. Okay, I've been living in this cabinet. And we had no idea because we had the wood stacked again.
Sure.
And then the sellers had moved all their stuff into the garage to make the house look cleaner.
right.
So we couldn't see everything in there, but it's just an example, like it's very common, squirrels, rodents
Raccoons or
they'll find the warm spot on the side of that house.
They will.
And if there's heat, they will try to get to the heat.
so. In my 30+ years, I have seen at least a dozen houses with termites. Now, it wasn't where it was a big problem because most of it was on the exterior. Some of it got into the interior, but a lot of times it's caused because of stacked wood or moist conditions around the house. And I've seen them anywhere from, like last year, I sold a house in Colorado Springs in the middle of a neighborhood. And we opened the window in the bedroom and I looked down in the track and went, I think those are termites. And sure enough, they were. So the sellers paid to have it all mitigated and bought him a 1-year warranty.
And I think the big challenge here is like, as a home inspector, I've seen termites twice. Like, we just don't see it that often, so it's just not as
It's not.
top of mind as like a Texas home inspector or somebody that, you know, every house you're really looking for it.
Right. There you go. I think he should buy that. So yeah, be aware, you can't have termites. There is an area here in Arvada that's basically 80th up to about 90th where the railroad track is. And from Sheridan to the west up by Lake Arbor and that area. And it's notorious for termites in there. Okay. So there is a shopping center right there at 80th and Sheridan, and those houses tucked right in behind there. I knew there was two people. In fact, one was a let's see. Oh, she was my title company rep, and her parents owned the home back in there, and 4 houses in a row had termites, and they had it that was infested, and they had some pretty serious damage. That was about 15 years ago. Okay, so it can happen, and just be aware. But one of the worst things you can have is that wood stacked up next to the house, and like you said, Tom, you can't see what's behind there, and you're not going to take 4 hours and move 8 cords of wood away from the house to see what's there. Fortunately, it wasn't a bear that got in, right?
Yeah.
Woo, baby.
That's promising.
That looks a little bit
So-
ragged.
I would guess that's a manufactured home that they put on
It could
a
be.
stack foundation.
Let's see what it says. And sometimes, just because it doesn't say it's a manufactured home, you want to go to the public records and see what you can find out about it. Okay, because not all agents do their due diligence and find out things. Let's see. Cabin / apartment is the building type. That's probably not big enough to be a trailer. It's only 570 square feet. So, yeah. You don't, when you get up into the foothills, you just never know what you're gonna run across. Except the one thing you do find a lot of are circular staircases, right? Just gotta love those circular staircases. The other thing that I would say tends to be a deficiency is electrical. Because a lot of people just don't care. As long as I got power, I'm fine. Well, they may have a box that's ancient or never had anything done to it, or they've never upgraded it, and the electrical is really serious.
Yeah, especially the summer homes where people bought them a long time ago, they go there. They not uncommon to find, like if I was heading to this house,
This one,
the previous, and I saw that 1954.
34.
34.
Oh, God.
So 1934, we'd be looking for aluminum wire. And wanting to check the electrical, and you're probably gonna have a 2-wire system in there, no grounds. So.
Sagging roof. If I was that old, I'd be sagging more than I am. Yeah, looking at age is important. And knowing up front, don't be afraid to call your inspector. Call Tom, say, hey, I'm gonna be showing a house up in Evergreen, 2 houses. One is 1934, one is 1950. What kind of things should I be looking for while we're showing that I want to maybe point out to them, or look at least, so that I can bring up any items I see? They took a lot of pictures of this house, huh? Nice red chair.
Ice cream cabinet inspector and door to match.
And that's probably the only heat. There you go.
Outhouse.
Once in a while, you do get houses too in the mountains that they don't have any type of heat other than a fireplace. Or a pellet stove. Something like that. So just be aware, and like I've said before, and know in this class, know before you go. Become accustomed to where you're looking at. Like if you go out to Crook, you've never been there. I've never been to Crook. I don't think I ever want to go to Crook, but for something like that, it's really difficult. And something like that, you may want to refer it out to a local agent. Like that, yeah,
And what if it wasn't my brother?
well, then your brother. Brothers, so, guys, any questions you've come up with while we've gone through here? Nope. Some future classes, I am going to be listing a house down in Littleton area. And it is in pretty bad shape, and I told people last Saturday in this class that I'll be glad to take some of you guys down there so you can look through it. I had my structural engineer already come and he's doing a report. The house really is in pretty good structural shape, but the reason I wanted a report, that I thought it was wise for my sellers to have a report, so they would know when an investor comes along and says, well, this thing's gonna need $50,000 of structural work, I'll know, yes, it is, or no, it's not. And he looked through the house and he said, it's really quite minor. It's mainly just drainage issues, but we will have a full report on that. So I can take you guys down and take you through the house and you can look at it and we can talk about stuff. And I think it would be very good learning for you to see it. The one thing it does have, and I haven't seen these for a long time. Do you remember, is it Woodruff or Woodruff shingles that were a class actions lawsuit? Okay, they're a press board shingle, right? They're made out of a pressed wood composition stuff and they're terrible. And the people, they put the roofing on themselves, number one, the husband did. Number two, he didn't pull a permit. So I told my people, let's get my roofer to give us an idea of what it's going to cost to replace it, because it is going to have to be replaced. It's in terrible shape. So, like everything else, cost of roofing has gone up, everything. So we know that for a fact to replace the roofing without plywood is $22,000. And if it does need plywood on the roof, all the roofing, it would be $29,000. So what we're doing is, before we even go on the market, we are gathering all the information so that we know if we get offers from investors, we're not going to be bending over and letting them just take whatever away from the value of the house. It's common that investors try to get the houses for as little as possible. The other thing you're finding is that people are starting to buy these houses for themselves because they'll offer more money because they're going to live there and they're going to do the work themselves. And they're not looking to get a quick, turnaround and make a bunch of money right away, or some money. So if anybody's interested in that, I will be in fact, what might be good is I should have the report back from the engineer this coming week, maybe early next week. And if I had that report to go with us down there to look at the house, I can point out a lot of things and give his reasoning behind what he thinks. Okay. So, and Jim, his name is Jim Circo. Jim I've used his services for 25 years. And he said he would love to come back and do one of these classes, and we'll talk about drainage and things to look for and structural stuff so that you guys can be aware. And I'll make sure I put that out, a week or two ahead of time so you can make sure to see the class. Because the more you learn about drainage and the areas, the better off you are. I mentioned to him, and I'm not sure if you guys are all aware of this area, but when you're going down 470 and you're by Bandimere, off to your east side there, they're building new homes. Now there's newer homes up on the hill, which is Soterra, and then Lennar is building all these other new homes down below. And I noticed when I was driving by there for years, they were moving dirt and conditioning the dirt they would move it, then they would move it again. They let it condition. What they're trying to do is get the moisture content evened out and then bring in fresh soil so that when they build, they are building on hopefully much better soil than what was there. But that area was very low and moist, you could tell. And he went to look, the structural engineer went to look at a house there. And he said, it's still bad. It's not good. And they're building houses down in there. So you want to be aware of as much as you can about that kind of thing, because soils in Colorado can really be hot, and we have bentonite, we have expansive soils, and we have shrinking soils. And it's a art to know how to build wherever you're building so that people's houses do not fall apart. So, and we've talked about soils before in this class about where to be careful of, and essentially it can happen anywhere. I mean, can you think of the worst area you've ever seen a house?
Oh, the worst. So E470 down by Chatfield. It's
Yep.
got some really bad areas in there.
Absolutely.
There are some bad areas along just south of Colfax on 6th Avenue.
Yep.
Right outside of downtown.
Mhm.
There's some bad areas around here.
There are. There's right over on Independence here and 57th and up by the old cemetery here on Independence. There's some terrible soils, and drainage is the big deal because it's a very steep hill. And a lot of the houses all have stair step cracking and movement. So it's it all basically starts a lot with drainage and how they built on that. So any questions anybody has on anything that we've talked about or anything else other than a garage and crook?
Hey, Bob, when are you planning on listing that property in Littleton?
Next, it's gonna come on the market the first week or so of the year.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's gonna be priced in the lower 400s.
You're
Okay,
just waiting on the report back from your engineer to kind of finalize what you guys are going to price it at?
we're not gonna do anything to the house, but we're waiting for that. We're also waiting for a couple of houses to close that are in that similar area and condition. So we see where they're at and have a better idea of what to price it.
Yeah, I'd be interested in joining you when you take people out to go check it out if
Okay,
happening. So yeah.
very good. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Have happy holidays, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Tom, for
Thanks,
coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Crook.
you.
See ya. You crook, you.
Crook took a beating today in this room.
I'll stitch it out, I'm just kidding. Oh, correct.
Good old brother.
Oh.